All right. Okay, everyone, our event today features 8 really incredible alumni from around the world who work in different sectors of the travel and tourism industry. So the purpose of this program is to just give you a taste of all the different skill sets that you use if you want to work in travel, and all the different career opportunities. There's a really broad range that you could explore. So if you are a student, I'm going to ask that you please turn your cameras on just for a moment for the introduction. We all want to see your beautiful faces and say hello to our panelists. So please turn your cameras on for just a moment. Give us a wave, say hello. And I'll let you know when to turn them off. Thank you. So many of you students here online today have asked about how you can get started in travel and tourism, what you can do as a student to begin networking, to find a mentor, to look for internships. Well, this is it. This event is a perfect experience for you. Perfect opportunity. You should have received an email this morning with the contact information of our panelists. Reach out to them, connect with them on LinkedIn, ask them for advice. And if you want to see more events like this or another event with a specific panelist, let me know. We can collaborate, okay? So the way this event will work is that we will have 3 rapid fire rounds of questions. And during that time, each panelist will have 2 to 3 minutes to respond. Panelists, if I feel like you're going to go over, if you're reaching that 2-3 minute mark, I will show you this red card and that will let you know to wrap things up, okay? So students, now you can turn your cameras off and I will ask you to turn them back on for the Q&A session. So let's get started with round 1. Okay. Global alumni, if you would please introduce yourselves and say a few words about what you do, how you got started, and how you ended up where you are today. Please limit your response to 3 minutes. Alberto, you can get us started.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alberto Sanchez. I live in Madrid, Spain, and I'm the owner and founder of Ride in Spain, a small travel agency startup focused on the world's cycling market. So that means that we offer trips primarily to amateur and competitive cyclists worldwide, although we also offer your regular sightseeing primarily to those cyclists that come to Spain and want to spend some time after the trip or before the trip to know a little bit more about Spain from a tourist standpoint. How I got started on riding Spain and the travel and tourism industry. Well, I'm going to go back in time and give you guys a little background on myself. At age 16, I came to the States, went to Maine as an exchange student and got my high school diploma there. Then I moved to Tampa, Florida, and I got my degree in communications from the University of South Florida with a concentration in journalism and advertising and also a minor in Italian. Then from there, I moved to Chicago, where I spent 5 years working in the advertising industry in Chicago. I moved back to Madrid in 1998 and got a job in one of the world's largest travel and tourism multinationals. It's called Amadeus. And at Amadeus, I was in charge of marketing communications for Latin America. So I spent a lot of my time traveling around Latin America, primarily Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico, and Miami. So at times I would spend maybe about a month traveling from all those countries, and I would do that maybe twice a year. And after a while of doing that, 10 years altogether, I decided that I wanted to become an entrepreneur, and I left Amadeus, and I went from earning 6 figures to becoming an advertising agency owner and earning 0. It took me 9 months to earn my first dollar. I opened my agency in Mexico City, of all places, and I did that for about 5 years, realized that I no longer wanted to do that for the rest of my life, took some time off to decide what I wanted to do from then on, and I decided to combine my three main interests were marketing, advertising, communication, and so on. My travel and tourism background and love of travel, and my passion, which is cycling. And those three were put together into creating my travel agency, which is called, once again, Ride in Spain. And I wanted to show you a little bit more about Ride in Spain rather than talk about it. So I have a quick video that I'm going to try to share with you guys. It's going to take a minute, and that will also take care of my 3 minutes introduction. So I'm going to share that with you guys in a second. Let's see if this works. And let me please tell me if it works.
No.
Yep.
No? How do we do that, Vanessa?
Maybe you can do
You're
it.
gonna,
next
you're gonna
round.
click on the little square with the arrow.
There it
Okay.
goes.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Now you can see my screen now?
Well, we
Yes.
saw the video for a second.
Okay, here we go then.
Okay.
1,
Right
2, and 3.
I don't think.
All right. So now I'm supposed to stop
Much.
sharing.
Mhm.
And I think that will do it for my introduction.
Thank you, Alberto.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Predmesky. I live down in West Palm Beach, Florida, and I work for a Greek cruise line called Celestial Cruises. So we have pretty in-depth cruises of the Eastern Mediterranean, and I work on the North American sales team. I work in what is called B2B sales. I manage our relationship and partnerships with all different types of travel companies who sell our cruises to their clients. So I do a lot of planning, sales, and marketing plans on how we can drive revenue together. And I got started in travel actually right at USF. You probably don't know, but there used to be a student travel agency in the Marshall Center. And I actually got a degree in art history. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I saw this ad and I knew I really wanted to travel after learning about all this incredible art from around the world. So I got a job. I pretty much had to fake it till I make it, listening to all my colleagues talk about all the places that they had been. And after 2 years, I got a promotion and moved to New York City, managing a bricks and mortar retail travel agency. And I think that's when my career really took off because I was really thrown in the deep end. I was 25 years old, having to manage 5 different people. They were all older than me and knew more than me. And that's when I really learned how to hire people, fire people, performance manage people, motivate a team. And I was responsible ultimately for delivering results. Once you kind of figured out how that all worked, I really gained a lot of confidence. And that's kind of where it went from there. I created a lot of partnerships and relationships with a lot of other travel companies that we worked with, like Kentucky Vacations. And that's kind of how I bridged my career over to the supplier side where I am now. So I have done business development for other travel companies like Kentucky Vacations, which is for 18 to 35-year-olds specifically. I had a very short stint doing operations for a tour operator where I learned that I am a salesperson. So you kind of learn about these things while you're moving throughout the industry.
Who's next? Who's next, Vanessa?
All right. Yep, it's me. So, can everyone hear me? All right.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So, hi, my name is Nadeem Haji. I'm the Vice President of IT and Data Analytics at Omega World Travel. Omega World Travel is one of the largest travel agencies in the United States with over 1.5 billion in annual sales before COVID. And I started my career in travel going back to 2006 in Clearwater, Florida, actually. So I used to work for a yacht charter company where we provided all these over 35 destinations, fly to destinations where you can start your cruising on a private yacht charter, 7 or 14 days. And I was a revenue analyst at the time. And then I got really immersed in data, then became a yield manager for the company, and then started working on IT projects. And then I moved to corporate travel with a consortia in 2011 as a director of IT. And then now for the past 6 years, working at Omega as the vice president of IT and data analytics. Just to give you a little background, because a lot of people don't know this, because you probably want a travel agency. Why do I need a travel agency? Well, there's a lot of corporate travel that goes on with corporations where they need a travel agency to do all their travel for, consolidate all their travel in one space, and to provide analytics and bargaining power with all the suppliers. And that's what we do. So we do a lot of travel for a lot of major corporations like Kohler, AT&T, and then on the government travel space, we do travel for CDC, NIH, HHS, and so on. So we play a pretty pivotal role. And we also have sister companies like Cruise.com, which Kelly is very familiar with. We're one of the largest resellers of cruises. And we also have a travel technology company, Traftech, that built the search engine for cruises. And that's a bit about me. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Julie Farricker. I am the CEO and co-founder of the Italian Tour, and now, because of 2020, also the Italian Seller. But how I became involved with the Italian Tour, so it's focused on bespoke Italian travel. And so let me go back. So wow, that was a 2020 moment. My phone fell, but it's okay. So I'm also, during the day, I'm a high school English and social studies teacher. So let's go back to 2004. I started teaching at high school in Punta Gorda, Florida, which is where I currently live. And I, as a teacher, a perfect schedule for traveling. So I had paired up with the foreign language department, and we started offering trips to Spain and France. And of course, these were trips that students would come on and teachers would be chaperones. So throughout this process, we were working with companies like Educational Tours and then other smaller companies that might have been working specifically for student travel. And we had noticed after a few years of doing these types of trips that there were things that we would change. There were things about the accommodations, about the food choices, because obviously as language teachers, we wanted to make sure that our students were getting like a full immersive type experience. So throughout that process, I started then trying to do some more things on our own, which is a little bit of a sketchy process, especially, and it can be a little bit scary when we're dealing with students and liability issues. So we would try to do things that, we try to pick our own hotels. We would try to set up our own travel. So then eventually in 2007, which is when I had graduated from USF with my master's degree, I had gone on my first trip to Italy, because before I was mainly going to Spain and France. And when I had gone to Italy, I'm of Italian background, I speak Italian, and something just inside of me just clicked, and I, started traveling to Italy exclusively. And when the next school year started, more students, of course, with Spain and France, we added Italy to the itinerary list. And I just became somewhat of maybe an Italian travel enthusiast. And throughout that process, people would always tell me, well, maybe you should try to, do this on your own. Maybe. And I was always afraid to do that because of liability issues, because of, teaching is my first passion, of course. So then eventually a college friend of mine, he was the one who really pushed me into this because I know Italy well, I know the language well, I know the culture, I know the gastronomy, but I wasn't maybe a business type of person as a teacher. Whereas then my friend was more into the business, social media, marketing, advertising. And so then we paired up and we started the Italian tour about 2 years ago almost. And we had been planning trips for people to Italy. However, with 2020, things changed. But in the meantime, while this is still going on, I'm still, studying Italy, reading about Italy, and I'm hoping to be there in summer 2020 to expand my skills. And in the meantime, still keeping up with all of my contacts in Italy, all the traveling over the years, that's what I've been able to do is make many different contacts. So meet you. So thank you.
Okay, I think I'm up next. My name is Elizabeth Heath, Liz. I am a travel writer and editor. I'm a writer and editor who does a lot of travel, and I'm based in Italy. I do not live in front of the Pantheon, but I do get to see it from time to time. When I got my master's degree from USF, the summer after, I did the obligatory backpacking tour of Europe, and that kind of got me hooked on traveling. And then my first 2 jobs after grad school, I had to travel a lot for work. And I got to see places in the US in particular that I would never would have been able to see otherwise. And from that point on, I was always, even when my job wasn't directly in travel, there was always something, I was always peripherally involved in travel. I always had a foot in there. I went, became a magazine editor, and I had opportunities to travel because places would offer me trips because they wanted me to write about their hotel or resort or whatever the case may be. I went, and I was also editing Frommer's travel guides, the paper travel guides. I still do that, and I write the Frommer's guide for all the Frommer's content for Rome now. So that was a big accomplishment for me to be able to step over from the editing side to the writing side as well. As I kept my foot in both of those. And then later I went back to USF to work on a degree in anthropology and archaeology, and that led me to Italy. I started coming to Italy for archaeological digs, and then I moved to Italy. And once I was here, it just made sense to establish myself as an Italy expert and start writing about travel in more of a full-time capacity. So that's what I've been doing. And I've been full-time in travel. I'm not going to count this year because I've had to pivot a little bit in 2020, but been writing full-time in travel since about 2016. But again, prior to that, always involved in some capacity in travel.
Great.
That's
And
it for me.
Liz, I'm Diane Daniel. Liz and I actually have a lot in common. So she didn't mention that she's married to an Italian person. Is that right, Liz?
That's true.
So it's a way that a lot of us run to other countries. So in the Netherlands, and so have that advantage. I spend a few months in Florida every winter, and right now I'm in Indian Rocks Beach, and I'm a full-time freelance writer and editor. I have been for 21 years, and I also help small companies and startups, especially ones in Europe, with their press PR strategy in the US, usually travel companies. So I do a little of that on the side. I do write a lot about travel. I don't consider myself a travel writer. I consider myself a writer, a journalist, and then I tend to write about whatever I'm interested in. I got my start at USF. I was a journalism major. My first article ever was in the Oracle. And I also did the obligatory backpacking trip just after I graduated from undergrad. I didn't go to grad school. And so that really got me interested in Europe. And then I actually moved there in my late 20s, just as, a young person trying to get work. I got work teaching English. And then I've worked at many papers in Florida, and then I moved to Massachusetts. My last job was at the Boston Globe, and I was on an editing track and really wanted to write. So when I was in my late 30s, I just quit and started writing full time as a freelancer. And I've been doing that ever since. And I'm just going to take this opportunity, even though this isn't about me, but it's just something I want y'all to think about as you're listening to all of us. is that it's really great to think about why you want to be in the travel industry, because if it's really to travel like you think about you do on vacation, is a very, very different kind of travel. So, you know, when I do travel stories, like at a destination, I'm not really having fun. I mean, it's fun, but it's really hard work, and I'm running around and I'm getting menus and I'm doing hours and I'm interviewing people. I have no time. I run into museums for like 15 minutes. It's crazy. It's exhausting. So even though it's fun work, it is not anything like the kind of travel that you might have done on vacation. So, and as you listen to people, just kind of, you know, hear what they're saying about the different jobs they have, and you'll see that it's different. Although travel is still a great industry, but it's not always about traveling per se. I do a lot of regional travel writing where it's within 2 hours of my home. And I've done that everywhere I've lived, all up and down the East Coast and now in Europe, because I can't afford to go, you know, all over the world. No one's going to pay me to do that. Those days are way over. So thank you.
Christian, are you there?
Oh, what happened to him?
You're on mute. Christian, you're on mute.
Should be better now, right?
Yes, and do you mind turning your camera on, please?
The camera off?
Yes.
I'm
There
really
you are.
savvy, as you know by now. How are things going?
Going great. If you don't mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about how you got started.
You have the
how you
image.
started today?
Yep.
Okay. Very good. So it's an honor to be with you guys. It appears that we did a little bit the same path, Alberto and me, because I left UNICEF as a advertising major, and after pursuing a career in the ad business, I found out it was not exactly the thing I was looking for, which can be a very good thing to do. Find out other avenues to seek. So, but it left me a little bit interested in the world of design. So I decided to move to Spain and started in a design school and ended up in an art school. And I'm still working as a professional artist as well, as a matter of fact, combining with my job in my travel agency. So in the 1990s, when I came back to Iceland, Iceland was in the infancy of travel tourism, and a lot of people were needed to work as guides. Outdoors is very high in Iceland, so a friend of mine called me. He knew I was a mountaineer and a hiker, and asked me to lead groups for a company called Nouvelle Frontiers, it's a French company. They were starting with Spaniards, so I had some marvelous years in the highlands of Iceland, a group of people from Spain, wonderful company for hiking, and it led me into the world of tourism little by little, like 10 years ago, we decided to found our own company and do things our way. And miraculously, name Iceland Discovery was free. So that's the name of the company we have.
Wow.
It's a small family-run company with a name that appears like a very big company. So we found our niche in private touring. We wanted to do more outdoors and adventure travel, but that market was kind of saturated. That's like the specialty of the house in Iceland. So we started doing our own tours, primarily in private guiding and private tour planning. And we've been growing little by little since we started the company 10 years ago. And if we try to forget this year, things have been going quite well. We hope to pick up in 21 like everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. That's a great segue into our next topic for round two. If you would please share some of the challenges that you face in your work during normal circumstances, and then if you would like to focus on any of the changes since COVID-19 and how it has affected your work or your industry in particular, please feel free to do so. Alberto, you want to get us started?
Sure. Challenges. Right now, I'm a one-person shop, being a small agency startup, so I get to do everything, and that's good because I have control pretty much of everything that I do. For instance, the video that you just saw is something that I put together using an image bank. Somebody that helped me cut the video together. The guy actually lives in Argentina, so this was done online, but I was the one that chose every single clip on that video. The script, I put together the script. I told the guy exactly how to cut the video, take second 8 from second 12 from this clip and this other clip and this other clip. And I even chose the audio track for the guy. So the guy together for me, which is the only thing that I don't know how to do. And I'm hoping to get to learn eventually, which is putting together videos. That's one of my main challenges. I do all my writing. I put together my web. I put together all my literature, my brochures, my promotional materials, my Instagram, my Facebook. I fund obviously everything that I do. I've taken some trips, some recruiting trips to look for customers. Last couple of years, I went to Colombia to promote my agency, and actually my first official group came out of one of these trips to Colombia. But obviously that requires funding. I paid for my trip. I paid for my hotel. I stayed in Colombia for 3 weeks during 2 consecutive years. So that's quite a bit of money spent there. What else? And the problem right now is 2020, for instance, my billings have been zero. I've been able to make $0 or €0 this year. And how do I survive? I survive from savings and because I have income coming from other sources. Otherwise, I would have closed down this year. So that's also one of the reasons why I opened right in Spain, because I knew I had the funding to be able to pursue this as long as I need to. I know it's going to take some time to build my travel agency. The product is awesome. It's Spain. It sells by itself. It's the countryside. I don't need any infrastructure, beautiful hotels, beautiful restaurants, great roads for cycling. So it's a very easy product to sell. I just need to get people here, which is the most difficult part. So I'm hoping that 2021, it's a good year. I've been concentrating on building content, on doing research strips, because my business requires quite a bit of researching. So, and researching also requires funding. I go on a trip, I choose destinations, I pay for the hotels in those destinations. I do routes for cycling on a bike, and then later I do them also in a car, just to make sure that the distances are okay, that the hills, that the downhills, that there are fountains along the way for cyclists to stop and get some water, that there's restaurants along the way. I check the restaurants. I have a meal at the restaurant. So it's a lot of work which I do by myself. Ideally, I would love to have a team. And it's a business that requires a team. But unfortunately, right now, I don't have the income to have a team supporting me. But there's plenty of work for 4, 5, 6 people in my team. What I do right now, when I have a group coming over, is I just outsource everything, or I hire freelancers. My business requires quite a bit of people every time I have a group. Usually 2 guys. 2 guys are 2 cyclists who are in really good shape. One really top cyclist for the really top cyclists that come in that group, for instance. And for those other guys that want to ride at a different pace, I have another guide who rides at a slower pace with them. So that's 2 guides there. A driver that follows the cyclists around, that goes and picks people at the airport, picks them up, takes them to the hotel, takes them back to the airport, or just follows us around, takes luggage from hotel to hotel, from destination to destination. an event coordinator, and myself. So we're talking 5, 6 people for a group of 8, 10, 12 writers. It's a lot of people, which of course requires salaries that you have to pay for. Um, so that's my main challenge. It's I still don't have the scale to what I mean. The scale is income scale to be able to afford all these services. And right now, it's just a matter of juggling a lot of balls all the time to make sure that the customer has a really good experience without suffering from my growing pains of being still a startup in a small travel agency.
Thank you, Alberto.
I got the red card, by the way.
Yeah. Kelly?
Yeah, I think coming from the sales side of the industry, the B2B sales side, one of the biggest challenges in my type of role is that I'm responsible for such a large territory because I work for a smaller niche cruise line. We don't have as big of a team. We only have 4 people covering the entire United States. And I'm one person. And especially during COVID, I've actually had my territory doubled. So I cover from the eastern coast of Canada, the whole east coast of the US, and the Caribbean. And to give you an idea, my top 5 accounts, there's like 40,000 travel agents just in 5 accounts.
Wow.
So for me, I have to be very strategic about how I spend my time in order to maximize my results. So if you've ever heard the term work smarter, not harder, this is where that comes in. The other thing is, there's so many travel companies I'm up against. The biggest challenge, really my job, is to stay top of mind so that when a client sits down in front of a travel agent, they think of me first before any other cruise line, before any other tour operator. So it's all about relationship building, training, being persuasive. And in COVID, I can't leave my house. So how do I do that? Before COVID, I would travel about 75% of the time. So that's another challenging part of the job to be aware of. You're never at home. I'm always staying in hotels, going to trade shows and conferences constantly. So it's definitely the road warrior life. But now from home, I've had to adapt. I have to engage with people and make people feel close to me and remember me from my couch and sell cruises in a pandemic. But I've been doing it. So you have to be creative. You have to be an outside, the box thinker, a problem solver, and be willing to change with the times to keep building relationships from afar. So those are some of the challenges that I've been facing in my position.
No red card for Kelly?
She was perfectly on time. Nadine, let's see how you do.
On time. All right. Yeah, hopefully I can live up to Kelly there. All right. From my end perspective, pretty much everything came to a grinding halt when COVID hit. But one thing I will say is extremely important to, when you're in in the industry, is to have a diversified portfolio. So even though on the corporate travel side it came down to grinding halt, but on the government travel side, there was still activity. Of course, not as much as it used to be, but that still affected us dramatically at Omega. So what have we done? What did we do? So we looked, from my perspective, I took this as an opportunity, as a fresh start. Look at all of our technology stack and see where we can automate as much as we can. And where areas we can provide tremendous amount of value to our existing customers that are still traveling today, whether it's essential travel, etc. So one of the things we've done is we incorporate a lot of the health and safety features in our apps. So we have our own itinerary app called Omega Go, and we incorporated COVID-19 airport measures. So whatever the airport they're traveling to, they have in their palm of their hands. They can see all the measures that they have in place at that particular airport, as well as health and city safety scores as well to any city that they're traveling to. And then we even launched our own online booking tool, Omega Go Plus, and that incorporates also health and safety features from all the reminding them to wear masks, HEPA filters, while traveling, all the things that, normal traveler would not be made aware of, right? So we took this opportunity to completely, revamp ourselves. Sorry, my daughter is waving a stick at me. And on top of that, we started conducting weekly webinars to make sure that everybody is aware of all the things. If you're traveling, these are the things that you need to be made aware of. So we do these every Thursday from 11 to 12 p.m. So you find yourself doing a lot of things you want to stay relevant and make sure that you're constantly communicating and educating the public, the safety features, the safety of travel, what the hoteliers are doing, what are the cruise lines are doing, as well. So yeah, it's been a challenge, but this opportunity to do more with less and still providing the service level that customers are expecting of you. Thank you. And
Beautiful.
Alberto, no red card.
No red card.
Julie, can you share with us some of the challenges in your work?
Yes. So again, good afternoon. So of course, challenges in various arenas. So I'm a teacher. So teaching during COVID is very challenging. And before COVID, I guess one of the main challenges was trying to balance being a teacher during the day and then trying to start up a travel business. So as a teacher, like I had mentioned before, we have the ideal schedule for traveling. So whenever there were major breaks, I would be in Italy. I'm also married to an Italian, so that was also something that made it easier for, accommodations and such. But from that arena, that's how I was able to branch out in Italy. And the challenges of also just dealing sometimes with Italians, with certain aspects of trying to plan travel. But the main thing that I notice is that when I saw what was happening with COVID, and as a teacher, we're always planners, I knew what was coming. And I said, well, this is probably, my business partner was like, oh, well, maybe just one summer we won't be able to go. And I said, I don't know. I think this is going to be something that's going to be much longer, unfortunately, not to be a pessimist. So then I said, okay, we have to pivot. We have to do something else because we still have to stay current with everything that's going on in Italy. We still need to, be focusing on culture, but the travel part might halt right now. So it did. And in the meantime, then I said, okay, well, what can I do? Okay, I need to keep practicing my Italian language skills. I need to keep doing that. And then I found that I could become an Italian wine specialist. So then I said, okay, well, this will serve two arenas. I will, be able to do Italian wine tours. But then in the meantime, also maybe we can pivot to an Italian wine business, which is what we have done. So I studied to become an Italian wine specialist. And then we opened the Italian Cellar as a subsidiary of the Italian tour. So there are other challenges that go with that, but it was just something in the meantime that, as a teacher, that is my main job. So fortunately, I still have, income. But I know with the Italian tour, because of everything that had happened, I mean, it's a very sad situation, but I mean, I know I'm not the only one. But in the meantime, I know, okay, I just need to keep focusing on Italian culture and other aspects that I can do to, when this hopefully ends, that, when Italy reopens and Americans can travel, we're ready to say benvenuto. So thank you.
Julie said she was married to an Italian. I thought she was going to list that as one of her challenges.
Yes, he's actually listening to me right now.
Prior to 2020, I would have listed the challenges of being a travel writer and editor is that it's an extremely crowded field. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot more competition with the advent of blogging and Instagram and everybody becoming travel bloggers. And there are a lot of people out there who are willing to work for very little money in exchange for the opportunities to travel. So I imagine Diane would concur with me that the pay for travel writers has actually gone down, like the rates that you get paid per article, something. So that's a big challenge. I mean, to make your living as a freelance travel writer without an anchor client. By an anchor client, I mean somebody who I'm going to make this much money every month from this client writing X articles or providing this content or something. I mean, that's a really, for me, that's been essential. To make a living as a travel writer, as a freelance travel writer, living in a very expensive city or not having some other, sources of income, I think is I don't want to say impossible because I don't want to say anything, don't like to say anything's impossible. It's extremely challenging. So I think the anchor client thing is important. And as Diane also said, people don't pay you. I mean, we are not reimbursed for our travel expenses. So your options are to be a self-funded travel writer or to accept free travel, comped hotels. And this is fraught with its own set of, ethical challenges too, because you're accepting something free from somebody who's expecting you to write something very nice about them. And if you have a bad experience, then well, how do I do this? How do I present this honestly? And then, so when COVID came along, hello, I'm a travel writer living in a country and a continent that no one can visit. So the demand for articles about Italy, about Switzerland, it's another place I write about frequently. It just, that kind of nosedived. I had just landed, I think Skyscanner and Cruise Critic had been my new clients as of January. I was like, wow, this is great because they came looking for me and awesome. And then it just went away. Okay, and I got the red card. So the answer to that, I think, is being able to pivot too. Like I just wrote a 1,200 word article today on Christmas tree ornaments. Not related to travel, no travel in there. I did mention European Christmas markets, but I think that was it. So when travel comes back again, when it picks up, we're going to dive back in with both feet, certainly. But if I sat there and said, there's no travel jobs, there's no travel writing jobs, there's no travel writing jobs, yeah, my income would dry up and work would too. But really to pivot and sort of, bend in the face of these challenges. And I just have to say that also as a result of the pandemic, I got my first bylines in the Washington Post this year. I'm writing about pandemic related travel. That's been my biggest byline to date. And I've gotten several articles because of that. So, lemons, you make lemonade, right?
So I'm glad I'm following you, Liz, because what Liz said, basically, I mean, again, we have a lot of overlap. I would say as far as the pandemic, it has not been a big deal for me because of pivoting. I've been pivoting for 21 years. So can't write about destinations. Okay, so then I'm going to write about how you can't go to destinations. Or I'm going to write about other parts of the pandemic, like she said, fitness. Or I do Q&As about people who are affected by the pandemic. So for me personally, I was so over the whole COVID thing that I kind of didn't write much about it, but I have freelance friends who were making tons of money because every outlet needed COVID. So you really just have to pivot, the word of the year, right? Also, not having to do with COVID, you must hustle all the time. That is a huge challenge. If you are not a hustler, you don't want to be a freelance writer. I've slowed down a little bit with my writing. I do make a full-time income from writing, but at the height, I would say up until a couple of years ago, when I was like really full steam ahead for 15 years, I would be juggling 10 stories. I would be pitching one story, I'd be writing the other, I'd be interviewing the other, I'd been invoicing the other. For the other, I'd be dealing with editors who have questions on a story. It was intense, and you need to be organized and juggle. You need to be assertive and proactive. You have to just keep at it. You have to have a thick skin because you will not be treated well, no matter how long you've been writing for a publication. I mean, I was just ignored by a Boston Globe editor who I've worked with 25 years. I also write for the Washington Post. I write for the New York Times. All these papers I write for don't even allow me to take discounts for travel. I wouldn't do it anyway. I do get some travel expenses reimbursed, but let's say it's $200 to $500, which does not begin to cover things, which is why I do regional travel. So finances are definitely a challenge, and it really depends on what your life is like. But I can fully support myself, even though I'm married, and I did it for many years before I was married. Like Liz said, pay has gone down. And I see the red card, so I just want to, so just one more quick thing is that it's also good to sort of try to diversify outside of journalism with writing if you can. And the final thing is my slogan, my motto for my work is easy come, easy go. Changes all the time. I lose things, I gain things, just like Liz said. That's it.
Right, that's a nice last words there. Keep it in mind. Helpful, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So in a normal year, my biggest challenge would be networking and contacting, making sure the company is getting heard, try to climb up the ladder in Google search and stuff like that. Try to be very serious about strategic thinking about the future, where we're going to be in the next few years, and go out. Very fun part of the job. Iceland is not big, still it's a large island. Give you an idea, it's bigger than Scotland, for instance. So we go around meticulously every year, trying to find new suppliers, check out old hotels and new ones, etc., etc., etc. Great fun. All that changed, obviously, in March. We have been quite lucky over here. Nevertheless, we had our last customer in March, flying out of Reykjavik, where things were quite normal, and arriving at Heathrow in total chaos. After that, we had terrible months, which was just cancellation and cancellation. Trying to reorganize, but at the end we saw that we wouldn't get any business this year. Our business comes from America, UK, and Southeast Asia, so there's nobody coming from there. So we decided just to lock down, hibernate, and try to wake up in 21, which is going to happen. Fortunately, we're starting to hear voices from clients that are rebooking for 21, with the good news that we're getting lately. Everybody is, a little bit more optimistic, fortunately. The challenge we had then was to rethink what to do this year. Obviously, this left me for first time in my life. I had a summer vacation, which was wonderful, and then I've been spending a good many hours in my studio painting. Again, very good, but not, bringing a lot of bacon to a household. So we're working on a new website. The one you see today is rather poor. We'll have a glamorous one coming up in December. And with a new part, which is concentrating on hotels. It's not a booking, but portraying us as experts in finding boutique hotels and nice stays in Iceland. So this has kept us busy for the last months. Thank you.
Very much. I just got a message from Jeannie, who's on the call. She's our Safari expert in the group. Jeannie, do you want to say a few words, introduce yourself?
Hi, so I called in on the audio only function. Sorry I didn't get together yesterday, but so let's see, where do I start? I went to USF, and my passion for travel, I would say, was ignited when I did a study abroad program through USF to Italy with Dr. Domenico Gerardo, who was amazing. And I started out as a business major at USF. I transferred from community college in Orlando, where I grew up. My dad's from Cuba, my mom's Dominican. I came to USF, wasn't really sure what I wanted to major in, started out as a business major, and then when I took stats, I realized that there's no way I could pass stats 2. So I changed my major and I got into international studies. And then in my last year at USF was when I did the study abroad program one summer. And that was it for me. I had grown up, my mom's Dominican, my dad's Cuban. I had grown up going to Puerto Rico and going to Dominican Republic to visit family. But doing the study abroad program was the first time I did travel like away from my family, and I was hooked. I knew I wanted to travel. I was interested in maybe like the diplomatic line of work, but right around then also is when the Nairobi and Dar es Salaam U.S. embassies were bombed in East Africa. So then I thought, well, maybe tourism would be, you know, a good way to go too. I was offered 2 different jobs, one in a congressman's office, Congressman Porter Goss, and I was pretty excited about the opportunity because I would have been able to work with the migrant farm worker community because I am bilingual. Spanish is my first language, but then I was offered a job with a tour operator located right here in Tampa, Florida. And I remember the owner sent me their brochure, and there was a trip to Tibet. They did mostly India, Nepal, the Himalayas. And I don't know, I was just enamored with Tibet. I'm like, I have to work for this company. So I went down the travel and tourism and hospitality industry path versus the government and diplomatic path. And I've never looked back. That was 20 years ago. So that company that I worked for was Cox and Kings. I worked for them for 10 years here in Tampa. And within the first year, they had started launching an Africa program. The person that was working on that program ended up moving to India. My boss was recruiting. I kind of threw myself at his feet and said, look, I have no experience, but I can do this. You can't train passion. And I ended up leading that department for 10 years and grew the brand. It was really exciting. Then the recession hit. I was going to start my own company. I chickened out because my stockbroker dad said it was a bad time to start a business. And then ended up working remotely for another company since 2010 up in Minnesota. Worked for them for 10 years, also selling Africa. And then I got laid off in March. And so I've been pivoting and doing a little bit of everything and walking dogs and watching kids for my friends and helping e-learners, but also working on a cybersecurity certificate, because I think if one thing I've learned about travel over the last 20 years is it is extremely volatile to any and all world events. And the media can certainly be like the biggest enemy to travel because of the sensationalist, I feel, kind of point of view. So anyhow, I love Africa. I love selling it. I am starting to get requests for 2021. So I do have a job with a company here in Tampa, but if you're looking for internships, actually, there's a great, so we have 3 different branches of the company, and part of it is Eastern Europe, Russia, Scandinavia, and the Baltics, and then we're the safari company arm of it, and then we have Alma's Journeys, which is Latin America, Cuba, and the funny thing is this company here was in the same building as the company I first started with 10 years ago. So 20 years later, I get laid off, and I'm kind of full circle coming back and working with the company I was working in the same building with 20 years ago. And I'm sorry if I went over.
That's okay. Thank you, Jeannie. Actually, and in the interest of time, we're going to skip right over to the Q&A with all of our students that are on the call. If you guys would like to turn your cameras on, please raise your hand if you have a question, and I will call on you. Do we have any students on the call with a question?
They're afraid of the red car.
Raise hand. We've got 37 people. Mark, wonderful. Could you turn your camera on if you could and ask your question?
Yeah, can you see me? It says my camera's on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are. Hey, Mark.
Hey, thanks for everyone being here. Appreciate it. My question, and I guess it was kind of for Elizabeth. How do you go about, and I'm sorry if this is like a really broad question, but like, how would you go as a student, like a new graduate, how would you go about finding an anchor client, like you mentioned?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like some of the advice I would give for writers starting out. And you know, one of the bones of contention in our industry is whether or not to write for free. Okay, whether newbie writers should start writing for free. I am of the position that, yeah, it's okay, particularly when you're just starting out, so you can help build a portfolio. And by writing for free, I mean like 3 or 4 articles, not a year of writing for free or something. But if you can find places where you could offer to contribute travel articles, places that they're mostly going to be online, digital publications that have decent traffic, if you look at the website and say, okay, well, they put together decent looking articles, try a couple things for free, build, so you have a portfolio, you have bylines, which is, the all important thing that you can say, here, my name's on this article. And then that way you start, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, these are all, resources. I'm not, I guess I've got Instagram too. I mean, there are other social media things that I'm not that engaged in, but it's like Diane said too, it's a constant hustle. And if I had the confidence the self-confidence when I was younger, I would have hustled a lot more and I would have networked a lot more. And I look back now and I think, wow, if I had this hustle at 20 years ago, but the trajectory of my career would have been a lot different too. So, an anchor client is, you look for places that are looking for writers that, my Trip Savvy is one of my anchor clients. And the way that came about is I wrote 3 or 4 articles for them. And I said, hey, would you like to pay me to do this for you every month? And now we're in a contract position where, every month I know I write X number of articles for them, X number of words for them, and they pay me X number of dollars. And that's been going on for 3 years. So,
can I throw in one thing
about
clients? Even seasoned journalists have a hard time finding them. So I think even if you write for free, unless it's really high level places, it would be hard. And most high level places won't even let you write for free. So I think that the possibility of getting an anchor client off the bat is fairly low, not to discourage you. And if you do get one, I don't know what Elizabeth is bringing in from Trip Savvy, but it's probably not enough to pay all her bills.
Yeah.
So even if you have an anchor client, it might just be a little bit on the side. It's still a good thing to know what's coming in. I'll just say one quick thing. My advice for anyone, any kind of entry, you find a field you want and get an entry-level job. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's delivering mail, because here's the reason. It's all about contacts. And if you are handing out mail or making copies at the New York Times, then you get to know the editors and say, hey, can I just try my hand at this one blah, blah, blah? And you move up from there. And that goes in any field in the world. Doesn't mean journalism or anything. To me, that is the way to get a foothold. And once I started doing travel, I was already established as a writer. So,
same.
Everyone has a different approach. This is just my advice, that I really think, because it's about relationships, find a place where you want to make relationships with those people and do any work you can, and you will move up if you want to.
Yeah, and I wasn't suggesting, approaching the New York Times about writing for free.
No, I know.
Just in terms of, building a portfolio first, is that you say, here, I've written this. And even if it's a little dinky website, if an editor bothers to read it, he says, okay, well, this guy can write, so maybe I'll give him a chance and pay him X to, write for us.
Yeah, I've been writing. I've been published quite a bit. Not the New York Times or anything, just local magazines and stuff. But it's a little extra money, and it's a byline and a portfolio.
Right.
But I just didn't know how you would get into the travel aspect. And something else, when I started going back to school, I'm older than most students. I started going back to school, and I quit my other job and I took a job serving at a fine dining restaurant again. And we would always, we would get a lot of travel writers. I'm guessing a lot of them were more like personal blogs. I don't know. They were from, Germany and stuff. And they would come over here and they would have their whole trip paid for. A lot of times they'd bring a significant other or a friend or something like that. And their meals were free at the restaurant, and they would put them up in a hotel and stuff like that. And now that I've been going to school, I can definitely see the ethical dilemma in that. But I don't know. I just always wondered how those people, how they originally got into that. Like,
It does happen. It definitely happens, but it's not, you can't really make a living doing that. I mean, some people do. And just very quick with bloggers and Instagram influencers, you can make a good living that way. Most people don't. So it's like, needle in a haystack. And the people who do work their arses off and they all burn out. So it's a way to make a living, but it's really tough. And it's non-stop.
I'm sure, I know we have to get on to other questioners. I would
Yep.
give you one place to look at is called travmedia.com. And this is a networking site it's where journalists can connect with PRs, with public relations representatives from destinations around the world. And that's a good place to just, if you can get in join as a media member and just start hovering there. And soak up as much information as you can and start networking and building relationships. That's a great place to do it. But I'm sure we need to get on to somebody else.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Sure.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands up, so okay. I'm going to give a question to Alberto, Julie, and Christian. You all run your own travel agencies. What advice can you give students in terms of what are the skills they should be developing now and what steps can they take to facilitate their path to being an entrepreneur in tourism?
All right, can I start?
Yeah.
Number one, to be passionate about the business that if you're willing to become an entrepreneur, you really need to be very passionate about whatever you're gonna try to build a business on. You need to be also realistic. 9 out of 10 new businesses fail during the first year, so the stats are against you when you try to become an entrepreneur. So keep that in mind. It's hard. It's very hard to make money, and only the lucky ones and the ones that do things properly succeed. Sometimes you may be able to do things properly and don't succeed. I told you guys before, my first business was an advertising agency. It took me 9 months to build my first dollar, and they were very rough first 9 months until I was able to make some money. 9 months where I had employees, where I was paying rent, where I was paying salaries, where I was paying for an accountant every month, where I knocked on a lot of doors, and a lot of doors were shut on my face. So it's difficult, but being also your own boss, and just being able to develop your own timeline in terms of where you want to go, your setting your goals and being able to achieve them, that's just priceless. So if you have that entrepreneurship seed in you, go for it. That's my advice. And if you fail, get up and try it again.
Great, thank you. Julie or Christian?
Okay, so I would say one of the skills that everyone should learn, it's not even just for this type of industry, but just life skills or adaptability, resiliency, and also just being able to say, okay, what do I do next now? Because this is that situation for myself, as Alberto was mentioning about being an entrepreneur and how that can be really challenging. And the only reason I decided to finally say okay is because I still have a job as a teacher. And also at this point, after so many years of traveling to Italy, I finally felt comfortable enough to say that I'm like, okay, I'm almost an expert. I've visited all the regions. I know so much about the country. I can speak the language. I can do this. I can do that. And that's when I finally felt comfortable enough to agree with my business partner who was trying to get me to do this for years, because he saw that I have the skills. And that's the thing, is trying to find people to work with that I'm not a one size fits all for this. I know what I know. And I think for students, I would tell you, if this is something that you'd like to do, you can't play an expert. You have to try to be one. So you have to, learn as much as you can. And so for me, that's why my company is only Italian travel. Because yes, I've been to many places, but I feel that this is the only one where I can finally say something that I know very well. So as a student, you know, and I was in college, I said to myself, I wanted to travel. And this is just with Italy, it just happened this way. And I would say choose something and just do everything: language, culture, gastronomy, everything about it. And then just remember that sometimes life is going to throw some curveballs, and it's being able to deal with those, because I've had many as well. You know, it's just COVID's, but I think why we're all here still is because just like, okay, what can we do next? So keep working and make sure to be adaptable. Thank you.
Christian?
Yeah, thank you guys. Very solid advice there. I agree totally with you. Like Alberto said, you know, there will be mistakes. Startups will fail. It's not a negative experience. These are just milestones on the way to success. You will succeed in the end. Just be persistent and work hard. One particular skill I think people in this business have to, you know, learn if they don't have it, is to how to write. Be a good writer. It will be a tremendous help. Not even if you're looking for a career as a writer, but as a professional in the business, it's very, very important. You're always convincing people around you, and if you can't put it in words, it will make things hard. I like to look at myself sometimes as a little bit of a truffle pick, you know, go out there and try to find something and make that thing you find a special place, a special part of your agency, because, you know, at the end of the day, there are thousands and thousands of people basically doing more or less the same thing. But if you manage to bring out that something special, it will make you unique and will make people want to look to you. As a person, you might want to think to figure out how do I see myself, and match that persona with a company, and try to get as much as information from that company. Study company, how they're built up, how they work. For sure, if somebody like that would knock on my door, I would gladly, you know, welcome into a house and give an interview. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Kelly and Nadim, I really wanted you on this panel because I think a lot of people, when they think of travel, they do think of writing, they do think of tours, but they don't necessarily think about the back end, which is the IT or the sales. So if you don't mind, I'll just start with you, Nadim. Can you just say a few words about the scope of IT or data science in the travel industry?
Yeah, sure, sure. One thing I would tell you is when you are in your 20s, absorb as much as you can, hustle as much as you can, pick up as many skills as you can. That is the opportunity. If you can do it earlier, great. But that is the most opportunity time, you know, to absorb as many skills as you can, because it will open up your world, regardless if it is travel or anywhere else. So from my perspective, you know, especially when it comes to travel analytics, I was heavily involved in data, not even in the travel side, but that opened my interest in travel in terms of, okay, how can I take all the skills that I've attained when it comes to data and apply it on the travel side. The software and database skills that I highly recommend everyone, whether 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, is, you know, everybody talks about big data. Forget about big data. You can have as much data as you want, but if you can't gain insight out of it, then it's useless to you, right? So it's very important to, you know, pick up skills in Python, database skills, not only in SQL but in MongoDB, Snowflake. You know, get acquainted with all the latest that is out there, and keep your mind open in terms of what you can do with those skill sets in the travel industry. So, for instance, we were the first in the travel industry to incorporate, in the travel agency perspective, to incorporate Alexa skills and teach it to publish them, and even teach it to identify where travelers are, where they're going to be, who's on a particular flight, anything that gives value to corporations from a duty care perspective, right? So these, and nobody was thinking about it, right? Everybody was thinking, traditional way of how getting data, but this is where we turned a commercial household product into something on the business side that provides tremendous value. And now it's exploded, right? Now you go to hotels, hoteliers, there's devices there that you can talk to and get things acquainted. There's even stuff on cruises, by the way, as well, related to that. And then on the and then especially during these times, there's other ways of providing value on the data side and analytics. So for instance, if you go to omegatravel.com, you'll find a link for COVID-19 tracking, which I have built, that provides I grab all the data from all variety of sources and then put them in one easy to interpret fashion to look at all the COVID-19, in a particular county, how's it trending, where all the spikes are, as well as on the world, and all the travel restrictions as well all around the world, and how's that going to impact, what are the places that you need now, COVID-19 negative testing and so on. So, the journey never ends when it comes to travel analytics, to say the least. Kelly?
Did you have a specific question for me?
No.
Yes.
Like,
It's the same question. So on the back end with the sales, what is sort of the scope of business development in the tourism industry?
Yeah, my job heavily relies on agencies like Nadim's. And I think something a lot of young people probably don't realize, there's a really big misconception that the travel agent is dead. It's not. A lot of companies like mine, all the major cruise lines, all the major tour operators, we heavily rely on sales from travel agencies. And what's really cool these days is that it is really adapting, just like everything else, to this new model called the host agency. So there's a lot of different opportunities for sales throughout the agency. I think for young people, especially if you're creative and entrepreneurial, that's definitely an avenue for you, because you can essentially become an independent consultant or a franchise owner and start small and grow your business with not a whole lot of risk. So you can kind of learn along the way. And even agents who already have their businesses will take on what's called a sub-agent and train you how to become one. And, in my particular job as a business development manager, it's not really an entry-level job. So you either want to have prior sales experience, not in travel. I'll tell you, the first thing about working in sales and travel is not the most important part. Understanding sales and how sales work and customer service almost outweighs any travel experience that you have. So those are important skills to develop. Presentation skills are huge. Quick story, I changed my major from business to art history at USF to avoid taking public speaking, and now I have to give presentations to like 500 people. So trying to develop those types of skills. Definitely self-motivated, competitive. I think when young people think about going into travel, like Diane said, it's like the dream. I want to travel the world. I wanted to too. That's why I got into it. But the truth is, where you can make a lot of money in travel, there's a very large travel companies that are very corporate. And on this side of the industry, I still get to live my passion. I still get to take groups of travel agents to Greece every year, but I also have a 401k and health insurance. So that's kind of a difference to this side of the industry.
Yeah, and just real quick, to what Kelly mentioned, fam trips is really, really fun.
What are they?
In her industry. fam trips. They're called familiarization trips, where you get to experience the product. Those are quite fun. In fact, that's how Omega Travel got started 48 years ago. The owner, Gloria Bohan, she was on a honeymoon on a cruise ship, and she noticed all these people are having such great time. She was wondering, how are they able to get on such a cruise ship? How can they afford it? Well, they're on a fam trip, and she's like, I want to do that. And that's how she got started 48 years ago. And till this day, even through COVID, we're still, flexible, adaptive, and making it happen, and still, and still relevant today.
All right, thank you so much. So we're going to be wrapping things up really quickly. If you are on the call and you're a student, you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand. We have about 10 minutes left.
I see somebody's hand up. Do you, Heather?
Heather Brent
Yeah.
has a question.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I did have a quick question that hasn't been touched on yet. My interests, of course, are related to travel. That's why I'm here. But specifically, my skill set is within photography and videography. And you have all hit on the importance of like knowing your product and the culture and the importance of writing. But I haven't quite, the only thing mentioned was Alberto's video that you didn't know. You don't have the skill set to actually put it together. And I was kind of wondering how, even as writers or travel companies, or when you own your own business, how you go about getting the proper content for the photos, the videos, and that sort of stuff. If that's clear.
I can say one quick thing from a journalism aspect, which is that these days everyone's giving it away for free. So that's definitely not the way to enter it. But I will also say that I, as a travel writer, use a lot of photos that are supplied by different destinations, and they hire photographers, and those people are well paid. So I think, like, you can hear over and over, one of our messages is corporate side pays more. I mean, that's the fact for everything. And so I think photography and videography on the corporate side, on the business side, there's definitely still a place for it, especially if you're good, because it's, it's a very big sought after skill, especially these days, because video and photography is super important in marketing destinations. So I don't have experience on that side with hiring people, but I definitely use a lot of that product, and I know that it's out there and people are getting paid to do it.
Yeah, I'll just say, obviously, I don't do this, but most of the companies I work for, they all have, like, the major travel companies have in-house, like, photographers and people creating photo and video content. And if they don't have it in-house, they work with an ad or creative agency on their campaigns. So that's another route as well.
In my case, for example, as Writing Spain grows, I would have someone full-time with photography and video. That's a skill set that I need. All of my promotion requires heavy photography, heavy video, and we videotape customers when they come over. We take pictures of them. I mean, it's continuous. So
can you hire Heather?
I wish I could. I wish I could. With no billions right now, very difficult to do so. But eventually, I will definitely have someone full-time, for sure.
I will be in touch. I'd love to come to Spain.
Bring some customers.
Heather, are you interested in writing, or you are just on the visual side of things?
I'm actually a philosophy PhD student, so I'm definitely a writer. I have that skill set, but my partner and I own a small business for photo and video, and we do a lot of weddings and things. We're trying to get into like the elopements, so then we kind of get
great idea.
Right.
Just wondering, if there were any other ways, because it hasn't been mentioned yet, like where that stuff comes from. Because of course it's important to market travel destinations with photos and videos.
I would say if it's elopement, then get into the wedding industry, because that, as you know, is a huge industry, and that to me would be a more obvious market, but maybe destinations as well. But it sounds like you're well on the way because you already have a business. So you see an idea, you have a great idea of what the challenges already are and what the, what the benefits are.
Yeah, I really appreciate this though and your insight. This has been really fun, and I didn't know, of course, this is my first semester at USF, and it's fun to see all of you here and what you've done.
Go Bulls.
Okay, this is a last chance, last call for questions. Anybody in the group want to pose a question before we wrap up?
Here's one question.
There's two hands up, I see.
I don't know why I can't see the hands.
Isabella,
Sarah, Lulu, and one other.
You guys just speak up. I don't, unfortunately, oh, here we go.
Isabella, you there?
Isabella, I see your hand.
Okay.
This is me. Yeah, I was just wondering, someone mentioned earlier about internships for the travel industry. Do you have any specific websites or places we can go to look into that kind of stuff? Anybody?
I don't have a website, but Florida, which I'm guessing most of you live in Tampa, has some of the largest travel companies headquartered here in the world. I mean, every major cruise line has a head office in South Florida. So there's some really, and of course Disney. There's some really big companies all based in Florida that you could reach out to that I'm sure have robust internship programs.
Or they did until this year.
Yeah.
Can you name just a couple of those companies?
I mean, they're obviously my competitors, but you have Royal Caribbean, Carnival, like every major cruise line in the world is based in South Florida.
Okay.
Also, if you're interested in destinations, like any city that has tourism is going to potentially have an internship. Tampa, St. Petersburg, Orlando, Winter Park, etc.
Theme parks as well, Busch Gardens,
Yep.
Disney, etc.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to mention, this is Jeannie. I was going to mention, I know a lot of I know Disney's also said they're going to now concentrate more on the streaming than their parks, but from the tourism side, in Africa, a lot of the lodges and camps, I know, value greatly when staff have worked at the Disney parks, because they have kind of like an exchange program for people to come work from overseas. And also a lot of people that work in the safari industry have also gotten a lot of experience on cruises with cruising. So that seems to be like a good entree into the world of travel and tourism, even for people who have like zero skills.
I'll also say that I believe when people can travel again, I believe, there's certain countries that allow like working holiday visas. I know Australia and New Zealand are both countries that have these types of programs set up where if you're under 30 years old, they're going to allow you to come work there for like a year. So you can gain some of those abroad skills. So that's something to think of too.
Okay, interesting. Great. Is there another hand that I can't see?
There's
for
Sarah.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sarah, you want to come on and ask your question?
Hi, yes, can you see me?
Yeah.
No, but we can
Yes,
hear
you
you.
do.
Here you are.
There you are.
Hi.
And
Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah. I'm a little bit of an oddball. I'm actually a healthcare student, and I joined today because I was really interested in learning more about entrepreneurship. And obviously, if there's any kind of hustle or dealing with challenges in the entrepreneurship field, I'm sure that the travel industry is at the peak of displaying those skills. So I really appreciate everybody's stories and their insights on how to lead a successful career. That's I've learned a lot. My question really is, I've been noticing in my training that a lot of the patients that we interact with are from cultures outside of my own. And I haven't had a lot of experience in my schooling understanding those cultures, and I really don't know where to start. Obviously, travel is harder now, so literally visiting different countries would be a challenge. But I'm wondering if you can point me in the direction to any online resources or anything else that I can just learn more from.
So sort of cultures in terms of in general, or in terms of how they approach health and medical care?
I would say cultures in general, because although it is important for understanding how we approach each culture approach healthcare, and that's sort of incorporated into our curriculum a little more. I'm noticing even as simple as building rapport with someone and just talking about even as simple as talking about cuisine, you know, just connecting with someone. I just don't really know how to learn more.
I would say Dr. Google is probably who you need to go to. I mean, I think kind of in a way, the sad thing about travel is you can travel around and still not find out those things, because travel is often a separate, you know, you're a traveler and they're a resident, unfortunately. But I do think you can find things online. I mean, I write a lot for the American Heart Association, and these sorts of things come up a lot of times. And so I totally understand what you mean. But in a way, I feel like it's sort of removed from most travel.
I think reading is always, you know, reading anything that's been written by, I hate to use the word indigenous because I don't know that's necessarily what you're talking about, but something that's been written by authors of that culture. Whether it's travel writing or literature or, you know, whatever, that can give you great insights. You know, a source of, I think I've used the word source of contention twice in this conversation, but a source of contention within our industry too is, you know, writers who, we use the term parachute into a place and then, you know, present themselves as experts and, you know, presume to write about the experience of being in that place. And, you know, there's a move towards promoting the works of indigenous writers, local writers more. So that's always a way to go too.
Can I add something to this? Sarah, in my case, for instance, I've traveled quite a bit. I've lived in several countries, and that will be my advice. You travel when you can. Ask a lot of questions because you have that interest in knowing about different cultures, which is something I share with you. I every time I met somebody that was from a different country, hey, where you from? Tell me about your country. I always asked, how do you say this in your language? And today I can say things in Russian, in Lithuanian, in Greek, in Polish, in German, anything you can think of. And it's because I bother enough to say, how do you say this? And I've remembered those words throughout the years. And today when I meet somebody from Poland, I can say, how are you in Polish? And the guy's like, oh my God, you speak Polish? No, I don't. But I know how to say thank you, goodbye, and whatever.
Goes a long way.
I wonder at USF,
for you always.
At USF, is there an international student association?
Yeah. There used to be when I was there.
I mean, something like that where people from different countries are gathering could be a great resource. I don't know if it exists.
And I'm sure it does. I can look into it.
Vanessa can put it together.
Yeah.
There,
Go get on that, Vanessa.
There are a lot of student organizations for international students, multicultural organizations. You know, you can connect on BullSync and find these events. They're virtual now, but even virtually, it's great to connect with people and get to know them. I would just chime in at the end here with a little bit of advice to pull everything together. Yes, having exposure to different cultures is going to be really important in your life, no matter what you're doing in your career. And USF does have a lot of resources. I myself studied at USF. I traveled to Germany. I studied there. I studied modern languages, French and German at USF. Then I ended up getting a Fulbright to go to Germany after my bachelor's. And I have traveled the world ever since. So whatever you're doing, I say definitely maximize all the benefits that you get out of that. When you're traveling, just like Liz and everyone's been saying, read and read literature from that place. I used to travel alone quite a bit around the world, and that's a great way to get into the conversations that Alberto's talking about, because when you're not with anybody, people talk to you a lot more. You can reach out to them. They'll see you sitting alone at a restaurant or bar and strike up a conversation with you. So that's what I used to do. I used to travel alone, and this was before, digital books and everything. Half my backpack would be 10 books, all of them written by the authors of that country where I was traveling. And that always led to really amazing experiences where sometimes I would be in the place that was described by the author in a book, and it just kind of made it magical. And I think anything that you do, just do it to the fullest.
Thank you all. This was excellent advice. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, I want to give a really warm thank you to all of our panelists who have called in from all over the world. Thank you so much. I think that our students are going to get a lot out of this session. I will be making it public so that those who are not able to join us will be able to watch it afterward. I hope this won't be the last time that I see you. I hope we can collaborate on some other projects. I know based on the survey that I did in the registration that a lot of students have an interest in each and every one of your fields. So hopefully I can reach out to you again and maybe do a different event that's a little bit more focused. For students, please take this opportunity, reach out to everybody on this panel, connect with them on LinkedIn, connect with me. I'm going to have a new Bullsing page just for connecting with global alumni. So reach out to me if you or your organization wants to do a special event. I'm more than happy to help you put something together. Okay, so thank you all and have a great day.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Ciao.
Bye. Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Arrivederci.
Bye.
Thank you.
Arrivederci.